Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jacob Restituto, and I have the incredible honor and pleasure of talking to Naomi Raine here today. So, thank you so much, Naomi, for taking the time to be on the channel. I'm incredibly grateful, and I think this is going to be a really, really cool conversation for us.
Yay, I'm super excited to be here. I can't wait to hear what we're going to talk
Yeah,
about.
absolutely. So, so, for people that aren't familiar with you and your music and what you've been up to, can you just give a little recap and a little telling me story?
Yeah, I am a singer songwriter from Queens, New York, New York
New York
City.
represent.
Um,
What part of Queens?
yes, um, I'm from
Okay,
Hollis.
very cool. I
Yeah,
went to school in a year for
so yeah.
in at Queens College, so yeah,
Okay, cool. Yeah,
in
that's near.
Flushing.
Um, yep. Um, yeah, so I've been singing for many years, been writing songs, and then about 2 years ago, I connected with Maverick City Music and have continued to sing and write and lead worship and got to do some really, really cool stuff that I feel like is helping people, helping the church, especially during like this crazy time.
Absolutely,
So, yeah.
absolutely. I would definitely say some pretty cool stuff, man. Absolutely, you guys are crushing it, man. I've been listening to your music for a while now, so it's first of all a pleasure and an honor to be chatting, but it's cool, man. Like you guys make some really 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 great music. And I was talking to
Thank you.
in a past a couple of these chats, I've had the opportunity to talk to a couple of people from Maverick City, and I just spoke with
Hmm.
Marianne, and I was saying in that like how uh, the authenticity in some of these songs is really cool, man. Like we were talking about like the old church basement album with Elevation, how it's just super authentic. Like the first track that Dante opens up with is just like it's super. We were talking about authenticity in songwriting because I'm a musician myself, and we both songwrite and stuff.
Hmm.
And I was saying how like where that line is for trying to write a song of like okay you want to reach many people, but sometimes the best way to actually reach many people is just telling your own specific story. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I'd love to hear your thoughts on
Yes.
that.
I mean, to me, authenticity is the sound. You know, when everybody's like,
Amen
there's
to
a
that.
sound that God is looking for or the world needs or whatever, I think it's authenticity because really, I think people know when something is true and when something is a lie. We know it. Even if we don't mentally know it, we kind of feel it and sense it. And there's something that cuts through even when we're ministering, when we're singing, or even speaking, like you can just know that what somebody is saying is true. And honestly, it's easier to say. It's I think it's a little more fluid, especially when
Mm,
you deliver it, because it's true to you. And I think that pretending, we spend a lot of our time pretending and being presentable for people or for things or not things, but like
mm,
businesses and whatever entity we're trying to get into. We spend a lot of time to do that stuff, even to get ahead and to be successful. But I think that what makes its way to the top is authentic voices, especially now. It's crazy. Like we live in a time where people just want to define truth for themselves. So there's no absolute truth, people will say, but then this can be true, that can be true for you, and the total opposite can be true for me. And we've lived in that way. I think that makes sense to us somewhere in our minds or in our feelings, because then it makes it okay for you to be where you are and for me to be where I am without any tension, without any argument, right? We can like agree to disagree. But where that doesn't really work is that we know inside of us that truth is truth, right? And so when we hear people that operate, or we hear them speak or sing or whatever in truth, I think that resonates with us. And I think that's why people have been so receptive to the sound that Maverick um, releases, because it's just authentic, it's
mm.
raw, it's real. Okay, I'm gonna say this. I was listening to some other music, mind you. I mean, I listen to a lot of music, and I love like a polished um, track. I love
Sure.
things that are just like just so and pristine and perfect and beautiful, right? But then there's something when a Maverick track starts, you can hear the choir members' clothes rubbing. You can hear like just that rustling or just the clearing of the throat. And there's something about that, like that truth, that reality, that grit, that realness. I think it's beyond even the songs, it's beyond the lyrics, it's in this of the room. You feel like you're in the room. And so I think, I think that's what people long for. That's what we need. That's what we love. That's what makes us love old school music, because they
Mm.
were just in a room playing and singing together. So yeah, those are my thoughts
Yeah,
on
it's
authenticity.
an interesting mesh, because as somebody that like songwrites, I'll try doing it authentically, but also I have my hand in the producing side of things. So like the two minds I feel like clash very often, because the producer of me is like, this needs to be like you said, pristine and polished and crisp, and there's always that drive for like not perfection, but excellence. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But then there's also this other side where it's like, well, there excellence is that you're subjective to some degree. Like you might think a song is super excellent because you like the authenticity of the choir rubbing next to each other, or the guy,
Yeah.
ruffling his nose, and somebody excellence is somebody else being like, yo, that 808 bass is pitched to perfection. You know what I mean? Like it's just,
Yeah.
it's such a music is such an interesting thing, and what moves somebody might not move somebody else, even within the same album. Like that's the most fascinating thing. Like, if we talk about a recent Maverick album, like I have my favorite song, my wife has her favorite song, you have your favorite song, and that is so fascinating. Like that, you might not resonate with even a song that you wrote as much as as another song you wrote, but somebody else resonates with it. And
Right.
it's such a fascinating process.
Yeah, I think that's the dope thing about being a part of Maverick is
Mm.
like we're all different. We all have a different sound. We can release something different and it can all fit in the same space, because the reality is that the church is not a monolith, right? We don't all look and think and feel and like the same things. And so to be able to create in a space like where I don't have to, number one, I don't have to sing every song.
Mm.
I don't have to, all those words, because honest with you, our biggest challenge is one of us. But outside of that, like we get to do it together, and everybody's unique voice and style and sound gets to come to the table. And even songwriters, there are some songwriters that write for Mav all the time that
Mm.
you won't hear sing,
Mm.
but they have different styles, and we get to showcase that too. So I love
I
it.
was just about to ask about that. How often is it the case where somebody will write a song, where you will write a song, but then you end up just feeling like, it might not be your song to sing, and you end up, Dante or Chandler or, MJ sings it? Or vice versa,
Um,
where they write the song and you.
right. I think that, so you hold it all together. The one where we did the collab with
Uh
Upper
huh.
Room. I wrote on that. I didn't sing it. Chan didn't write on that, and Elissa wrote on it though. So it was like, we don't always sing the songs that we write. I will say more often I sing the songs I write, and I may sing another song that
Mm-hmm.
somebody else wrote. Because I think sometimes, the voices, like there are different voices that can bring
Yeah.
home a
Yeah.
song or something like that. But to be honest, we try to give first preference to the songwriter. And then after that, we all, like, nobody's like holding on to their songs like, no, I have to sing it. I have to, I have to do this, I have to do that. It's kind of like, hey, yo, oh, you know what? Dante would sound dope on this song. Like, I think he should do this. And sometimes we write with each other in mind.
Yeah,
So
it's a the mark of a true humble and mature songwriter to be able to let go of a song and be like, no, like while I love this song, it will do it so much more justice if so and so sings it, or this person, is featured on it. And as soon as you can learn to let go of that, it means so much more. You know what I mean? But it's definitely a humbling process, because
yeah.
you're like, oh, this is my song. I wrote it. I want to put it into the world, but sometimes it
Right. I want all the other songwriters to be humble enough to give me their songs and let me sing them.
I love that. Absolutely. What does your songwriting process look like? And two-part question actually with that. What does your personal songwriting process look like? And for Maverick, is it often you guys writing together and releasing stuff, or you write a song on your own and you bring it to the table, kind of thing?
So I'll answer that one first. So we often write together. We often write together, but sometimes we'll start from a place. So we'll have like a song start or whatever, like you kind of worked on
Mm-hmm.
your own, and you kind of bring it into the session. And so we'll see whatever sticks. Everybody will kind of release whatever their ideas are, and then we'll see what sticks and what we want to flow with. And usually we're all in agreement, like this is what we should, move. Honestly, I don't think there's been a time where we weren't all in agreement to move forward on that. So yeah, and co-writing is unique and
Yeah.
special. And I used to be very much more timid in a co-writing song session. Now I'm more like active, but then I also can take different roles. So, and I might be the one that starts the conversation, because we always start from conversation generally. We start from conversation and then maybe go into worship, or worship and then conversation, and then somehow a song comes out. I may start the conversation and might not contribute much in terms of the actual lyric placement, but, was a part of like, well, what about this? Okay,
Sure.
this, okay, pull a scripture, that. And then sometimes it's like, I can be like the editor, and it's kind of like, oh, instead of saying, river, let's say water or whatever. I don't have any great
Classic
thoughts
words.
today, but classic worship words 101. Yeah, so I can like kind of do that. And then there are times where I'm just like, no, I feel like, okay, this is the line, and just kind of giving out lines, or and I'm super like strong on melodies too. Like I like to give melodies. So I might not have like the words, but I'm like, do, 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 and then that's what we stick with. So, yeah, I think it looks different in each situation depending on who you're writing with, because we don't write with the same people every single time. And so everybody kind of just finds their spot and fits in, and usually it works. I can be honest, I've never been in a session where there's been like any beef or drama. There is always tension. It's not easy, especially when you wanted to say river and that person's like, what about water? It's like, no, water could be anything. I want, there are moments where you want to fight for your word. And we do sometimes, because honestly, at Mav, we're family. So we get to be like, yo, you said river in your last 3 songs. Like, come on, like, let's say something else, But we learn how to get through that tension and write, and it's not easy. So I never want to make it seem like it's just like easy peasy. No, it's difficult, it's hard, and it took me a while to get comfortable co-writing, and really bring my best, like put my best foot forward even in that space, because I was so nervous, like, oh my goodness, are they gonna like my word? But personally, when I write personally on my own, I don't force myself to write.
Interesting.
And yeah, because I'm like,
there's schools
enough,
of thoughts on
having
that,
to write.
like the whole, like, you do it like a job kind of thing, and what comes, and then there's also you write when you feel like writing. That's interesting.
Yeah, I do not force myself to write. There was a season where I wrote a song every single day, and that was because I felt and those songs weren't they were just for me. And so there are things that I will do in life to just sharpen my skill and work at it. But I find that the best songs out of me come from just where I am and like flow naturally. So usually I write from worship. I'm just like singing, flowing or something. And then there's some like 4 lines that come up, and then I'm like, okay, I'll take that either in the moment, or I'll take it later. I'll listen back and be like, okay, I want to write off of this. Sometimes I'll bring that into a co-writing session, but sometimes I'll just write it by myself. Other times it'll come out of my personal like prayer time with the Lord, or honestly, frustration, like I'm upset with somebody or I'm sad. And so I'm like, I'm going to my studio to write, and so I'll go and I'll write a song, and that's how I deal with all the things.
Yeah. Have you ever written anything that you like would hope somebody else would sing, or intend for somebody else to sing with somebody else in mind?
No, I don't think so yet. I mean, I can hear people singing songs.
Sure.
And I have written songs for other people, if this makes sense. But I think what you're asking is like, if I've ever written something and I was like, man, that's really for this other person. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, not by myself.
Yeah, no, I hear that.
No,
absolutely.
I think I always hear it in my voice, if I'm honest. And that makes me feel like maybe I'm a little selfish. But
well,
but I'm okay with that.
I mean, if you really think about it, it's kind of funny being a songwriter or somebody that releases music. We all have this innate thing where it's like, I have a message that I think is worthy of sharing. You know what I mean? And it is all a little narcissistic to some degree. Obviously,
wait,
our intentions
are you calling me a narcissist? What? I just want to know.
What?
I said, if you're calling me a narcissist,
no, hey,
I just want you to tell me straight.
I am a songwriter myself, so I relate to this very much. So I'm saying it is funny that we all have this, like, it could be taken either way. We could be very generous people, but it all stems from a, like, I have this story in my head that I want to share that I think is worth sharing with people, which is just funny. It's just something to laugh at.
No, it's cool. I think, like, I've never been like, no, I don't want that person to sing this. Like
Sure.
I'm not super like protective over it. Um, over songs that I let other people hear
Mhm.
to be
Mhm.
like, okay, this is a thing. So if I co-write, I'm not like I have to sing it. You know, that's not where I
Sure.
am. But I will be honest, when I write songs by myself, I'm generally thinking like, oh, I'm gonna
Yeah.
sing this, you know? And if a song, oh, ooh, let me tell you this. This is how I know when I'm writing a song, if I like get emotional, like start to like almost cry, I have like a almost cry space where it's like the tear wells up but it doesn't drop. Like if I get that, I'm like, okay, this is something I need to do because I'm sensing it strongly. Like this is like real, and I know that this is like something that I feel like I need to share. And I feel like that's something the Lord has kind of like helped me to know and navigate through. Like, is it something to share or is it something to keep? You
Mhm.
know, and I have songs that I just sing to the Lord. It's just me and him, and nobody will ever hear them. And I actually think they're really great songs. And I'm telling you, I've been thinking like, Lord, we should release these songs. These are good songs. And he's like, no, these are my songs,
Wow.
and they're just for me and you.
So
So that's cool.
I'm curious about like with the songwriting process and stuff, and when you write, you know, you guys release a lot of music, and I admire that. I think musicians need to release more music, and I think that people
I
get so
agree.
caught up in like, oh, perfecting the song, and not necessarily like it's just like that they need it to be perfect, and then they try to promote
Yeah.
it so much, and then they just release 5 songs a year. You know, it's like I love the
Yep.
mentality of like, you know, releasing as much as you can because you never know what's going to resonate, and I don't think one song takes away from the other. You know what I mean? Like I
Me
think that if you
neither.
write a good song, it's still good today and it's still good a year from now. And if you write another good song a year from now, well, now you just have 2 good songs. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and
Well, can I say
100,
this?
yeah,
I think that mentality comes from the industry. That mentality comes from
though of
um,
releasing less.
of releasing less, yes, because you have to capitalize off of what you've released, right?
Sure.
And so you have to make sure that people are only focused on this thing, that they give their money to
Yeah.
this one thing so that you can keep making music. And let's be honest, it takes money to make
Sure.
music. Like, so we're not crazy. They're not crazy for that. But I think that for the kingdom, right? We know that songs help shift the church. Songs help shift any culture. That's just the reality, right? But for the church and for the kingdom, we need to sing to one another. We're encouraged to sing songs, hymns, and spiritual songs to one another, to encourage one another, to lift, to help shift and shape. And God is using songs now across the whole world to unify the body of Christ. It's a unifier, right? If we're all singing the same songs, then we're all kind of in the same space. The Lord is speaking to us, and we're kind of like, and not that we need to just be one way, but I think it unifies us. And
Speaking of,
so our mentality,
sorry, continue.
I was gonna say, our mentality at Mav is not to try to milk people for money,
Mm,
and try to make it a money thing. We really love making music. We want to release the music that we feel like is for right now, for
mm-hmm.
this moment,
Mm-hmm.
and not try to make it a thing of like, oh, we got to be, business savvy. And I think that that's upsetting some people in the business world, but that's okay because we're not doing it for that. We're
Sure.
actually here to do like the work of God
Yeah.
through songs.
Yeah. Speaking of all singing the same songs, we were singing like 2 or 3 weeks ago "Promises" at our church, which is your song with Joey L. Barnes.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
it's a great song. So going into that, I'm curious. Like when you're writing, you're writing "Promises"? Are you working on? I don't know who wrote Gyra with Chandler, but like when you like these bigger songs that are a little bit more popular than some of the other ones, like do you know in that moment like you're like, yo, this is a jam or something, or like do you have songs personally you're like, man, I'm surprised that this one isn't getting the not recognition, but the exposure as the others. You know what I mean? I'm curious on your perspective on that.
So I didn't write Promises.
Okay.
Joelle wrote that, and Dante and Aaron, I think. And then I wrote on Gyra with Chan, with Pastor Stephen Furtick and Chris Brown from Elevation. So in both moments, when I heard Promises, I was like, oh, this is a good song. I was like, okay, we'll just sing it. I don't think we realized until after it was mixed,
Hmm.
like, oh wait, this was a moment, like this was a thing. I think Promises is one of those songs that was like for a certain season. It was for this season, like, and honest, if I'm honest, everybody needs to know and hold on to God's faithfulness, right? So honestly, I think it is just one of those songs. Gyra was one, when we were writing it, we were like looking at each other like, this is different, but this is a thing. Like, I don't know what, but we need to release this song. And literally, Pastor Stephen was like, um, I want to know when you guys can come and sing this at my church. Like, we need to
Oh,
actually,
that's
he said, I
cool.
don't care what we do. It wasn't even an album yet. The reason that we did the Old Church Basement album is because we wrote Gyra and Shall Not Want in that basement for 13 hours. We were in a basement for 13 hours. We took a half-hour break to eat quickly and then went down into the basement again and wrote that song, those songs. And so after writing those songs, it was kind of like, oh no, like this is something serious. Like we need to release it. It's different because Gyra's so different. But there are songs that I just
Yeah.
love even more. And I'm like, man, why didn't that like hit the way that
Sure.
I thought it would have hit?
Sure.
But it's like
And
that.
you
I
never know
think
if it will in the
everybody's experience
future.
is different.
That's the fascinating thing about,
Right.
you know, it seems a little silly, but like if you look at TikTok, for example, for a second, like kind of going on this
Mm-hmm.
random trend, it's like these random songs just pop up that are 15 years old. I mean, like, yo, this song was a jam 15, and it just comes up
Yeah.
though, and or it's like wasn't even popular, or was like semi like underground popular, and it just comes up 10 years later. You know, it's just an interesting, you know, I mean, it's like a massive world scale of it, but it is interesting to see. Like you never know. Like 5 years ago, one of these songs that you think are a bop that needs that this like it could hit differently in culture is comes up later. Maybe because
Right.
maybe it was written for 5 years from now. You know what I mean? And
Wow.
and it's just an interesting concept. Like I know personally songs I've written change for me over time. Where like it meant something to me when I wrote it, and then I'm like, this I'm not there anymore, and this means this now. You know what I mean? So it is
Mm-hmm.
interesting to see like maybe it just doesn't hit because it's not that we're not there yet. You know, it's super fascinating.
Right.
But
It is.
so I was speaking with Marianne and a couple of them, and or MJ, and you guys are only some of you guys are signed to a label, right? Are you signed to a label, or are you still independent?
I'm still independent.
Which is the
Mm-hmm.
craziest thing ever. And that so I part of what I want to do is like on this channel and some of these conversations is inspire artists. Like it's actually possible to do to you know make some money in the industry and make a living, and it's possible, and you don't have to
Yes.
sell out. And I was actually talking to identify or identity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Identify.
identify. So I was talking to Ty and Sydney, and that was a super interesting conversation because we were trying to define when is it appropriate to get a management or not. You know, like because I see so many artists think that they need all this stuff right away, and then they kind of just get
Right.
you know it bites them in the butt because they're not ready for it, and or it's not even beneficial. They just think that they need it. So I
Right.
find it so inspiring. Where like you guys are doing amazing things, and not all of you guys are signed to a label, and it's really really fascinating. So do you have a whole team with you, or like do you do a lot on your own? Like what does that look like?
I do have a team with me, and that team has shifted and changed a lot based on basically what you were saying. Like some things I realized I didn't need. Like right
Mm,
now, I don't have management. I did have management for a while, but I didn't really need them at the time. And so what I realized I really needed was an admin. You know, I needed somebody to help me organize and get my stuff together. So yeah, I think for new and up and coming artists, I think you have to really assess what you need and don't just go based on what you think or what you're told is normal.
mm,
I think you really have to assess your needs, look at what you need, and comply with that. The other thing is, I'm trying to be careful and mindful about how like who I surround myself with and the type of people. So to me, like the person, their personality, their vibe, like how we get together, are they really saved? Because when you have people in your business and they have to match your heart.
sure.
So you might not mind if they're really saved, if you're not really saved. So that's fine. And what is really saved? Anyway, but like you might not mind. I think people have to match your heart. They have to match your vision. They have to see greater for you than you see for
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah, that's a
and
great
and they have
point.
to know how to tell you about yourself,
That's a great
and
point.
be like, no,
But
you're gonna do this, and then also, give you grace and be like, okay, fine, I see this. Okay, let's go with what you
yeah,
what you
and
said.
that kind of goes back to our humility conversation. Like you have to be humble enough to be willing to accept this advice from people and stuff like that, which is which can sometimes be hard. And sometimes when they're pushing you, you have
It
to be like,
is.
okay, this person, they're only looking out for our best. You know what I mean?
Yes, I tell my team all the time, I'm like, you guys have to just expect that I'm going to push back at what you say. But that doesn't mean I'm not agreeing with you. That's how I'm built,
Sure.
right? That's how I'm programmed. They say something, they're like, Nay, you need to do this. And I'm like, why do I need to do it? I can give them 15 reasons and then come back and be like, okay, so when are we
Yeah.
doing it? That's just the way that I am. And I think when you build a team around you, you have to be willing to go through the
Sure.
process to deal with those types of things, get to know each other personality wise, and really meet the goals. Like we all have a goal. And
Mm,
I think honestly, teams are like the real MVPs of every
sure.
artist that you see. Like it's the people behind and beside and under that are supporting, that are
How did you find your
doing this
team?
work. Honestly, okay, so I have a 3-person team right now. Them are from my church. So it's just like based on connection and working together in church and in ministry. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. You care about me. Um, can you help? And then the last person, she's a spiritual daughter of mine, and we worked together at a church before. So honestly, it was just relationships and meeting folks and being like, man, you're amazing, and seeing that they were invested in what I was doing and
Sure.
wanted me to win. You
Do they
know,
tour with you, or do they kind of stay at home, and how does that work?
they stay at home. One person runs with me more often than not, but generally they stay at home. If I do anything with Mav, I don't really need anybody to travel with me. But if I'm doing things alone, then I'll have somebody travel. Sometimes my MD will travel, and I didn't even talk about like creative team. That's just like business admin team. There's 3 people, but then like creative team, I have a few people on there too, and my MD will travel with me a lot, and so
MD
I don't have
is
to be alone. My musical
okay.
director.
Okay, thank you.
So he gives all the information to bands and whoever else is like at the venue that I'm gonna
Mm.
be ministering at. And yeah, so it kind of takes away all the pressure. I don't have to direct the band and tell them I want this, I want, even though I probably, knowing me, I probably will say something because that's my personality. But I can really like direct a lot of that to Adele, and that's his name, and kind of like just be free and be
Yeah.
stress free. Everybody's always like, how do you do all the things you do? I have help like that.
Sure.
You need help,
Sure. You guys do a lot of stuff. It's wild. It's really cool. And I think that speaks to also the success. Like people, you guys are putting in the work, man, and you're getting out there. And people think that they're gonna put out a single acoustic song and be the next, rock star. And it's like you gotta stick and put in the work. So
Yeah.
now,
And also, it's not just work, it's relationships.
oh yeah,
Cultivating good relationships, like relationships are like the currency of life.
sure,
Like be nice, be a nice person, like be kind to people, be helpful, generous, like so into people. That stuff, oh, it lasts so much longer than all the other things. So some people that you see that are moving and working and shaking and all of that, like they're there because they are nice people, or like they have relational equity. I'll say that.
sure,
Not everybody is nice. I want to correct that. Not everybody is nice, but some of them have relational equity and they get things done and they know how to help people.
yeah,
So
absolutely. How did you get some of these? Like, how do you build your relationships and cultivate your relationships? Like, how do you go from where you were starting out a couple years ago to now working with like Stephen Furtick at Elevation? Like, that's a that seems for some like so unfathomably distant that it's like, wow, how do you even get
yeah,
there? Like, how do you meet these people? Stuff like that.
right. I'm telling you, I was sitting with Pastor Stephen Furtick, like, how did I get here? How did I
Yeah.
even meet you? But the thing is, like, honestly, I met okay, this whole thing started me connecting with Maverick, because that's how I got to work with
Sure,
Pastor
of
Stephen,
course,
is
yeah.
through Maverick, right? But I met up with Tony Brown, the mastermind behind Maverick, at Bethel School of
Okay,
Supernatural
yeah, sure.
Ministry. They have like a
Yeah,
we
yeah.
did a worship set there. But I did that through Alton Eugene. He writes a lot for Maverick and has a bunch of great music. You should check it out. His name is Eugene King.
Yeah,
It's amazing. But
absolutely.
he invited me out there. Mind you, I met Alton on Instagram. Like it was just being kind. Like people are
Sure.
putting out music, they're showing what they're doing. You like their video, you comment, you say nice things. Mind you, they know, like he knew of me because I was doing music or whatever. He admired me, I admired him, and we just connected and we're just like, hey, nice to see you.
Sure.
You know, I love that video. I love that song. Just being kind. I met Dante the same exact way. Dante hit me up one day. He was like, yo, I just want to tell you, like, I'm not being a creep. I just love your music and I love what you're doing. Like, keep going. From there, I was like, oh my gosh, it's Dante though. Like, hey, thanks so much. You know, that's what I was saying, because we both had admired
Sure.
each other from afar and we had just connected. Same thing with Chandler. I hit Chandler. I'm like, yo, just keep going. Don't stop. You know, like just encourage him. He's like, thank you so much. It means so much. We literally met each other like a month or two later at the same thing with Alton.
Mm.
And I had met Dante before, and Dante and I worked together. So it's like when you realize that everybody is kind of friends, just be nice, because like you could like be weird or like
Yeah.
have a bad thing with one person and it can affect
Absolutely.
how you look to others. So
Absolutely.
just be nice.
Absolutely. So I want to respect your time, and I know that you're a busy lady. So wrapping it up, I want to say first of all, thank you, but I want to end it with this question. You know, you said you've been working with Maverick for 2 years, and Maverick's doing unbelievably well, right? Thank God, it's amazing. It's amazing what you guys are doing. It's crazy. But what advice would you give to yourself 2 years ago now, like from 2 years ago to when you started to now? Something that you've learned over the process that you like would have been really beneficial knowing.
Okay, I'm going to say two
Sure.
things. One of the pieces of advice I took, this is what I actually told, like, say yes. Say yes. I think sometimes for me, I was so afraid of doing something or being like seen. Again, mind you, a whole singer putting stuff up, but still afraid to be seen. And so when I was asked, like, hey, do you want to sing on this, track? I would have normally been like, no, I'll
Sure.
just sing in the back. Like, don't worry about it.
Interesting.
That was my thing. And it was just like, say yes, say yes. The Lord told me to do that. I said, you know what? I think he's right. And so, Naomi, you
Usually
should
is.
do this. And we did it, right? Just good like that, right? Did it. But I think the second piece of advice I would give myself 2 years ago is don't judge people and situations like prematurely.
Mm,
Get to know,
sure.
get to understand. Don't jump to conclusions. That's really what it is. Don't jump to conclusions, because I think I've learned so much actually being a part of more things than like standing on the outskirts. And I think that sometimes we can prematurely judge a thing without enough information and really without having like the Father's heart. It's easy to sit on the outside of something and be like, that's this, that's that. And that goes both ways, right? That goes like, that's really nice and thriving and it looks like it's good,
Hmm.
and it's really not good. Don't jump to conclusions, because you could be coveting that thing and wanting to get into that, and then when you get in there it's like, oh no, it's terrible. And that's the other way too. You can look at something, someone, a business, a group, and be like, that's bad. They're this, they're that,
Yeah.
they're Illuminati, whatever. Like, and then you start to realize that, like, oh, like that's
Yeah.
actually not
Yeah.
true, And so I think we just have to be better at like not jumping to conclusions and
Sure.
waiting and just loving folks and really trying to be like Christ.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think you summed it up really well. And I think one of the things that is the most fascinating is the fact of you mentioning, which so many people have mentioned, which is fascinating. People need to take note. Is the relationships are everything, like, and you said, don't judge people before, like, and it's all relates to relationships, and that's the biggest thing. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time. If you could just hang out for 2 seconds, I want to wrap up the stream. But thank you guys so much for watching. Definitely go check out all the things that Naomi is doing. Naomi. Okay, sorry. Naomi is doing unbelievable things. Has some really great songs out there. So check out in Maverick City. There's some links in the description to her Instagram and her music and her YouTube channel. All this stuff in Maverick City. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. God bless and peace out. We are all set.